Okay, folks, we're back with the second part of our show here at the Reg.A Money Show with Ron Costa and Miguel Dotris. And as Miguel mentioned before, we have a really interesting question from one of our listeners out there, Miguel. Miguel, are you done with your cake or what?
Hang on just a second, Ron. Damn, this cake is good, buddy. I love this cake. All right, I'm all set. Let me get a little sip of coffee. All right, we're good. Let's go.
Okay, so here's the question, Miguel. This is a really, really big-time question. It's coming to us from Beth L., and Beth is out in Phoenix, Arizona. And she asks, I'm going to read this word for word. Here we go. She says, I was listening to your Gas&Tech podcast, and the owner mentioned going out to the market at a share price of $7 rather than going institutional at $35. Who sets these price points? How does a company know what initial prices they should offer their Regulation A shares at? How about that from Beth? What do you think, Miguel?
I think it's a wonderful question. I think that, Beth is asking a question that a lot of people are asking themselves these days when these Reg A's are coming out because, there's no initial market. So initial market is, or I should say a public market. A public market is where the stock is already trading on a public exchange, and if I want to buy, say Facebook, I know I can go out there and quote Facebook prices at at $132 or whatever the Facebook stock price is currently. People can go out and they can find the price. Now, under our Regulation A Tier 2, you don't necessarily find an open market for these shares. So how do you really determine the price of the shares? And there's a couple of different ways of doing that. Like the most common way of finding market cap or market valuation is, you can always do outstanding shares, how many shares the company has outstanding. So like let's say, somebody has 50 million shares outstanding, and the stock price that they're putting on it on their Reg A is $1. So essentially what these guys are telling you is, 50 million shares outstanding at $1 a piece, it's a $50 million company. Now, does that make sense to you guys in the sense if I could say, well, what about a company that says I have a $5 stock, right, but I only have 10 million shares? So again, outstanding shares is 10 million, $5 price, that's still the same $50 million company. So the value of the company is determined by how. You got to look at the assets, you got to look at earnings, and a lot of these companies, Ron, when you look at earnings, a lot of these companies are pre-revenue. So then you got to go back and say, well, dang, pre-revenue, what does actually that mean? Pre-revenue. Pre-revenue means exactly that. Pre-revenue. No revenue is existing at this time. So some of the current formulations that someone would use to get the market cap, you get valuation, or you would get net cash, and then you would times a cap. A lot of tech companies are going like 10 or 20 cap. Some pharmaceutical companies go from anywhere from a 10 cap to a 20 cap. And what I mean by a cap is multiply times 10 of earnings, okay, EBITDA. But there's so many different ways of doing it. But I don't want to trip people up with a lot of that. Here's the bottom line, okay, guys. When you're looking at something of in the Reg A realm, all right, I want you to think of a couple of things. There's a big misconception because the price per share is as important as the market cap when it comes to investing in stock. And this is especially the case among new investors, okay? But you got to remember that the market cap should be your key consideration when you're evaluating a stock. And that's because it tells you the value of the company. You are looking for the value of the company. What is this company going to be valued? Now, a lot of this is going to be speculation. Just like when we buy our homes, we speculate that the value of the house is going to go up because of certain market conditions. Now, what you could do is you could look at some of the comparables in the same type of market. For example, what was the listener's name that gave us this question, Ron?
Beth.
So I would say to Beth, Beth, look, I would look at some other companies that are kind of doing the exact same gas and tech that our friends at American Gas and Technology are doing, right? I would look at some of the same industry. Where are they in relation? Where are they in relation to like the guys who are being traded on an exchange currently. Are they at the bottom of the market or at the top of the market? Yes, they're pre-revenue, but what they're saying is if they can deliver some of the things that they're talking about and they get past pre-revenue, what is that going to look like? And you got to look at their performers, Ron, because a lot of these guys are putting performers inside of their financials, and they're giving financials, but they're also giving performers of where they expect themselves to be. So you got to kind of look at a lot of different factors. I mean, that's why this Reg.A is such a cool and niche market right now, because, you know, who sets the price? The company sets the price. But sometimes the company can set the price too high and price themselves right out of the market, Ron. And sometimes they could price themselves too low and not get enough capital investment in the company because they set their sights on, too low of a price. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest problems out there, though, because when a company does set their price up really high, obviously they're really bullish on what they're doing. It reminds me of when I watch Shark Tank, for example. And these guys come into the tank, and Mr. Wonderful always says things like, "Your valuation is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. What do you have to base that on?" So it's the same kind of thing here, where these companies, they're kind of taking a guess, I think, a lot of times. But there is that sweet spot between being too low and too high. And I think if you're in that area, then you have a viable deal.
No, absolutely, and that's why you got to be in consideration of where you are in the market, where your market space is. Are you new to the market? What are going to be the entry barriers? What is it going to take? There's a lot of factors that a company has to look at to be able to do that. Now, Ron, we got a lot of companies lining up to be on the Reg.A Money Show. You got a company like what we like to talk about, the qualifiers and the contenders. You know, we're talking to companies that are qualified already through the SEC, like American Gas and Technology was, and then we also got a lot of contenders that are coming up, like the 2020 Genes. You know, a lot of these guys are coming and they're reaching out. You know, and we're talking to them about where they got these things. So, Beth, this is a great question. This is a lot of information that we can get into and talk about. I think it's just a wonderful question, and you're going to see a lot more of this as more and more of these Reg.As come out. You're going to have to make a good determinations and find people that can, help the officers and directors of these companies to put them, like you said, in that sweet spot, Ron. That's a very great way of looking at it, I think. It's sweet spot.
Do you think
overpriced or underpriced?
Do you think that the stock price, when it comes out, also has kind of a psychological effect to an investor, where maybe they see something at $20 and they say, well, it's at $20, or if they see something at $1, they may not be as confident as it would be if the stock were a little higher, perhaps?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to play on speculation, because you just can't put a dollar on speculation, Ron. I think that a lot of that has to do with the psychology of the investor, the industry, if it's pharmaceutical, if it's oil and gas, if it's mining, if it's brick and mortar, if it's pre-revenue or after revenue, if it's a 10-year-old company or a 5-year-old company. There's a lot of factors, that we can open up a can of worms. I think we could do a show on each one of those factors, Ron, and everybody would be completely happy. Guys, you are listening to the Reg.A Money Show with me, Miguel Dotres, and my partner in crime and my co-host, Ron Costa. We bring you information in regards to the Reg.A industry. We bring you information in regards to companies that are coming out in Reg.A, find companies that are trying to get into Reg.A, and a lot of investors that are asking questions. And Ron, tell the people before we wrap up the show today, can you tell the people how they can get in contact with us and all the different platforms that they can find us in, Ron? Because that's so important, because we're reaching so many people and doing a lot of work. I always forget to tell people, oh, yeah, reach us out here, or reach us here, and I always know, the email addresses and the website, but let everybody know so that way they can get in contact. Beth, thank you so much for the question. It was a beautiful question. Thank you so much, and we really do appreciate you listening to the show. And if you got a question, listen to Ron, because he's going to give you the information on how to contact us and how to get your question on the show. And we are sorry, guys. We get a lot of questions out there. We can't answer all of them, but we're trying to bring you the creme of the creme, all right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're at the regamoney.com, REGA money.com. That's our main website, and you can see a link there for the Reg.A Money Show right there. At that point, you could ask a question. If you want to be a guest on the show, fill out the form as well. We'll give you some information on that. Miguel, we also do the news site at IPO2Go. That's TOGO, IPO2Go.com. And that's how we're online. just find us on Google. Search for Regulation A podcast. You'll find us there. And in addition to that, we're on the iHeartRadio network. We're on SoundCloud. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. And of course on Spreaker, where it all began. So everyone, thanks again for listening to the Reg.A Money Show. Subscribe. Let us know what you think. And we'll keep coming at you with more and more shows. Next week, we'll have another one, Reg.A Money Show. Miguel, thanks a lot, and thank you all for listening. Have a good week.
Happy birthday to you. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you next week.